Thank you for your time. This presentation is on the Artech AQ series voice recorder and will be a general sales overview. Before we get into the actual hardware side of the AQ voice recorder, I'd like to have a think about this. Most businesses, when they're either sending a fax or sending an email or writing a letter, will keep a copy of these communications on file. They do this so that they've got records to refer back to so they can verify what was said to the customer. But in any given business, whether it be small or large, well over 99% of the communications is done via voice. The majority of the disputes comes up when either a staff member or a customer requested something or informed that something would happen and the end party is misunderstood what has been said. So, I guess the question is, why is it that we keep such a small amount of records when we're sending of our communications and emails, faxes and letter writing, but we are not actually recording the 98% or 99% of the communications that we're doing with customers? Why do people record conversations nowadays? There's any number of reasons, and it doesn't really matter if it's a small customer with one or two people right through to large corporates. Generally they'll do it for customer satisfaction, employee evaluation or training, recalling of conversations, e.g. a customer rings up, orders a certain thing, or an employee told the customer a certain model number and price, and that's what the customer is relying on. Compliance regulations, whether it be in insurance, banking, or contract work. Reduce liability to disputes and lawsuits. This is an important point. 9 times out of 10, a dispute will arise out of a miscommunication. Either something was said to the customer and the customer doesn't recall, or the customer is saying that something was said to them by a certain staff member and they have been misinformed. By recording all these conversations, these can be easily, these disputes can be avoided, because basically you can look back at the recordings, listen to what was said, and immediately put a stop to the ongoing dispute and losing potentially a good customer in the process. It's to improve the quality of service and to reduce data errors, and so that the recordings can easily be gone back to and listened to again and again. It's for automated third-party verification, whether in contract work or doing sales work for a third party. It's for security and it's for legal. Whatever the reason, the Artech voice recorders can offer a solution that is very cost effective for a very small company through to a very large end corporate customer. In this presentation, we're going to be going over an overview of the AQ series voice recorder. The Artech AQ series is a standalone server which can record from 4 ports and be expanded through to 8 ports. It records PSTN lines or CO lines, e.g. telecom lines or main carrier lines. It can record SLT extensions. It can also carry a combination of wired telephones and radio communications, or even microphone room recording if you wish a boardroom or a meeting room to be recorded, or a teaching environment to be recorded for lectures, etc. Why standalone? There are solutions out there in the market that use a PC base for a recording solution, and these have got their place, and some of them are quite good. The advantage of an Artech embedded operating system and being a standalone recorder is that it doesn't have a keyboard, it doesn't have a display you have to worry about, it doesn't have operating system updates that the computer needs to reboot, or at times nowadays will actually reboot themselves and disable the recorder while it's rebooting. As a dedicated standalone recorder, its sole purpose in life is to record your conversations, and that's what it'll do 24/7. So you don't forget to turn on a PC. You don't have the inherent problems of a PC operating system with updates and or viruses, etc. The AQ series voice recorder has an option of, has an LCD screen, which is a touchscreen. This enables full access to the recorder functions, and the recorder can actually be used as a completely standalone unit on someone's desk, where they can actually set up the recorder, listen to the recordings, search for the recordings, play the recordings, etc. You don't need a PC. Of course, there is the Artech black box PC client software, which enables you to have up to 30 clients log into the recorder at any one time to have different levels of access, so they can search and administer the recorder themselves. But it also starts off from a very basic perspective with the LCD screen and a standalone function. The LCD screen on the recorder is a high definition touchscreen. It basically displays all the parameters on the recorders. It allows networking to be set up, the channel status to be displayed. You can search for recordings, play through recordings, etc. Or just simply once it is up and running, can give a status of the each individual line. Okay, now we're just going to run through the AQ series voice recorder options. We'll start off with the AQ4. This has got no LCD on board. It is the entry-level recorder. It has 4 recording ports with an SD card for storage. The reason it hasn't got the LCD is purely for cost. This is so that it's an entry level for people who simply just want to have the 4-line recorder and use the black box software client that's going to be installed on their PCs on the network. The next level up is the AQ4L. This is the LCD, has the high definition LCD screen. This allows the recorder to basically be run as a standalone desktop box with the LCD, so it could be sitting on a supervisor's or manager's desk, have the phone lines of the system going through it, and then the manager can see all the status, do the setup, do the recording, do the searching, etc. for the conversations on the recorder. But of course also it has the option of installing the black box client. Again, it's 4 port, and it has the SD card memory. Now the SD card starts off at 4 gig, which is the entry level starting point for the SD card, but then can head through to 64 gig SD cards. We then have the AQ4LH. Now this is the LCD version of the AQ4, but instead of having an SD card, it has a full 2.5 500 gigabyte internal hard drive. So has all the functionality of the AQ4L, but with naturally massive amount of storage on board the system. Then basically we step up through to the AQ8 series. Now the AQ8 is has an additional 4 ports installed on board, allowing a total of 8 ports to be recorded simultaneously. And we have the AQ8 again without the LCD for entry level, the AQ8L, and then the AQ8LH. We're now going to have a closer look at the AQ recorder in the next slide. Hello everybody, my name is Steve. I'm here to give you an overview of the AQ series voice recorders. What we've got here sitting in front of us here is an AQ4 series recorder. We'll be going through the different variations that you can have on this recorder, but we'll just be using this one as a base starting point. So let's start off at the front panel. If we have a look at it here, we can see that we've got a small power light indication here that'll come on red when the unit is powered up. We have got a USB slot there, that is basically for USB sticks and to store voice files, etc., memory, or load software on from a technical perspective. We've got an SD card here. Now here's one of the areas that we need just to explain a couple of points. This card just pushes in there, then pops out like so. Now this is the standard card it comes with, which is 4 gig. If you need anything larger from an SD card, you can look at the technical documentation. We'll just walk through some of your options. Now the SD card comes with the standard AQ4 and AQ8 model, and also comes with the AQ4L and the AQ8L. Okay, there is another model called the AQ4LH and the AQ8LH. Now the H standing for hard drive, so it's got a 500 gig or a 1 terabyte option hard drive internally. So that just fits back in here like so. Okay, so we're all now just heading towards the top here. Now, an AQ4L, the L stands for LCD, which is a touchscreen LCD just sitting here. If we've just got a standard AQ4L, I've got another one just sitting over here, we can see that this one doesn't have any screen. It's still got your SD card sitting here, just like its brother, but it hasn't got the LCD screen. Main reason for that is cost. This is what is the entry level of the AQ range. It can still be 4 or 8 channel, but it's just a cost driven thing too, so that the customer doesn't need, or if they don't require, to have the LTD. But I'll just put that to one side at the moment, and I'll continue with the L series, with the LCD series units. So we've got a touchscreen here. We'll fire this up later and just walk through that. Now we're just going to have a look around here and at the back of the unit. Okay, we've talked about AQ4s and AQ8s. What makes it is either 4 channels, or if it's an 8, it'll have another channel row above the sets here. The plugs come in pairs, and they're basically in and out, line and phone. So that's one circuit in out, 2 circuits in out, 3 circuits in out, 4 circuits in out. If we wish to expand this, we can by simply unscrewing the box here, here, here and here, and we can then take the lid off and have access to the internal components, and we can mount a new expansion card. And what we do is, if you can't see it very well probably here, but this is actually a panel which is actually stuck onto the main chassis. Now behind that panel is the other slot which has been cut in the actual metal, and a complete set of printing, etc. It duplicates everything that it has here, except for it has an additional 4. Okay, then we've got your LAN and a WAN port here. Now this is sort of a little bit more for future use on this recorder. We'll release that later on, but essentially when you're installing it, technicians, you use your LAN port to install. The LAN port at this point in time is not used. You also have a serial port here, which is an RS-232, some of you may know. This is basically used for connection to a telephone system's SMDR unit, so that you can get the call detail recording from the phone system. On the AQ you can use a standard serial cable, or you can actually even connect to a system with a TCP slot, so you can get the SMDR across the LAN as well. That is used so that when we put the recorder in front of the PABX, e.g. across the CO line or central office lines in front of the PABX, we can then also plug in the PABX's or IP PBX's SMDR information into the recorder, and then actually match up the extension information with the trunk information, so we've got total transparency across the system. And for reporting, so we can search from extensions, we know what extensions made, what and ever, and it actually, in many respects, it actually keeps a complete record of core detailed recording on the PABX without having to have another PC to do that. The LAN port, also quickly going back to that, also allows the unit to be connected to the customer's network, so that they can connect to the client software, the what they call the black box software, which installs on the client's PCs around the network, and they can log in and from their PC and actually do various changes and alterations, etc. Search for records, download records, do settings, etc. There you've just got your power plug, which is basically plugs into a external power pack, such as this one here, and then you've got the on-off switch. Okay, so that's as a quick overview what it does as in regards to the bits and bobs and connections on it. So what we're going to do is just plug in the power here, and we're going to turn on the unit. Okay, so the startup of the Artech AQ is very fast. It's probably one of the quicker systems out there. It's got an embedded operating system on board, so it'll basically do a run up, start loading up its operating system, and probably within a minute it's up and running. So it's probably one of the quickest recorders out there for starting up. And as you can see, we have now got the screen up and running. Now this screen here, I'll just try and get it so you can see it a little clearer. How's that? That's a little bit better. The screen here is a fully touch screen, so all through we can connect into the customer's network, and the customer can load software up to manage this recorder. It can actually even be run as a standalone recorder on someone's desk. So you get a bit like it's got some brackets so you can actually mount them, so it sits up like so, and you can actually touch certain icons, do searching, etc. So for example here, bleeping there is just giving us a warning that we've got some lines not connected because this recorder isn't connected to anything. If I press the CDR file here, now it's telling me it's actually, through there is no records on here because it hasn't been running. It's given me all the calls that it would have made. There's inbound. If I press that, it clicks into that tab. Another tab is outbound, missed calls, recordings, and important. Now, the other thing you'll notice about the AQ, the touchscreen is actually quite responsive. It's a nice quality screen. The graphics are very clear on board and quite detailed. You can do searching, so there's another icon here, so we can just click into searching. So we've got date searching here for just basic searching, or we can actually go into advanced searching. So we can go channel ID, channel phone number, extension number, inbound, outbound. Was it a trigger recorded, such as an RT or a voice room recorder, or anything such as that? Just press the back key, back again, it goes back to the main unit. It has monitoring on board, so we can actually go across and press each channel that was active, and then we can actually listen to the conversation that's happening without without the two parties hearing us. So from a supervisor's perspective, it's quick and easy, and they can have full functionality from this LCD. Click on status, and it'll actually give us a. We're just going a little bit out of focus here. There we go, back in. So on the status, it's actually giving the status of the lines. At the moment, they've all got grey X's on them. I'm not sure if that's coming through as clear as it should be again. But basically, this will be saying whether the lines are plugged in, whether they're on hook, off hook, ingoing calls, outgoing calls, etc. So it gives a real-time status. So from a maintenance perspective on a small PAVX, that's pretty brilliant. Settings, so we can actually have the full access to all the settings that are available on the recorder. Just click back out of here. We've got our network settings, so we've got can set our IP addresses, we can set DNS addresses, MAC addresses, etc. So tools, etc. for backing up. So as you can see, the AQ series, particularly with its LCD screen, is quite a versatile little unit. It's simple to use from a customer's perspective. It's simple to install from a technician's perspective, and just the day-to-day operation in regards to giving you line statuses, etc. Of the recorder. It's a very versatile and user-friendly device for the customers. Thank you for taking the time, and Right, we're just going to run through a couple of the AQ series recorders features. All recordings that are made on the recorder can be encrypted so that you cannot listen or play any of the recordings without having the authorized login and Artech software. Or we could also save it just as a WAV format, which is easy to email and to copy across to different servers or drives. If you do have the encryption activated and you wish to email it, the software will give you an option to decrypt it and put it into a WAV format or send it as an encrypted format. It has multi-level users authorization, so that we can have like a full supervisor administrator enabling them to monitor calls and delete records and all that functionality. But also we might just have users who just want to be able to log in and just simply listen to conversations. So each user would have their own individual login and password, and the recorder will actually even keep a track of who has logged in and what recordings they've been listening to. The search engine on the AQ series is very powerful. We can search by day, time, date. We can search by length of call, the time of the call, the phone number, the extension number, whether it be incoming, outgoing, and we can search even groups or groups of numbers, or a group of calls that are from a particular number and or extension. We can do live call monitoring as indicated in one of the earlier points in the presentation. This allows a supervisor to be able to sit at their PC or even at the AQ unit itself, see that a certain agent is on a call, and they can actually just click onto that call in the software program, and the conversation will then start streaming through real time to the administrator so that they can do quality of call management, etc. The call recording memory is exceedingly flexible on the AQ series. It can, as indicated earlier, the standard entry-level card is 4 gigabyte, which would basically give 640 hours of recording, but then can be expanded through to 32 or even up to 64. The AQ4 LH with the internal hard drive is 500 gigabyte standard, but can actually be upgraded through to a 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte if required. Network access is through the RJ45. This easily allows anybody in the network customers LAN to be able to have the client software and log into the recorder and have access of what they wish to do. And of course, again, because the AQ has its own LCD, can be used as a standalone. The phone book feature is on the recorder. This integrates 2 Outlook programs, and you can import a complete Outlook contact or public folder into the AQ series. Now, this is an unlimited, basically an unlimited number series. It's basically name and number. If you do use this feature, it actually even offers simple basic call popping. A lot of the customers we found import their customer database into their recorders. We've got particularly car wreckers, they like this feature because they have their their call agents logged in to the recorder, and when the calls come in, the numbers will pop up on the screen and they'll know what customer it is, and they can treat them appropriately and give the various price levels that they would give out if they're like a mainline dealer or just a level 1 type sort of dealer for resales, etc. The AQ has multiple system alarms for abnormal problems, such as if the power goes down on a line, there's a hard drive issue or a critical error. If there is a hard drive error, the main unit will sound an alarm. It will, after about 30 seconds of sounding an alarm, it will then try to do an auto recover It first does this by doing a reboot, and then if the hard drive has a problem, it will continue to alarm. The other functionality in alarm monitoring within the system is also whether the power goes down or the power goes off on the individual lines, and it'll pop up an alarm box and play a tone. Again, earlier you might have heard this tone played on the demo unit that was being shown to you, because there's no lines connected to it. It just gave a warning tone. Caller line ID is standard on the voice recorders. This uses FSK incoming, which is universal incoming caller line ID. So when the call comes in, if your network has got the call line ID enabled, it will actually record that caller line ID. On outgoing calls, it will actually record the DTMF, and of course then, so you can search by outdial number and incoming number. And of course, if you connect the SMDR, etc., if required, you can actually then search by extension level. Voice compression on the recorder is basically using ADPCM, or you can use the standard wave format. Because this is an analog based recorder, we can actually inject voice announcements and answering machine on it. Now these are if some customers just has a basic setup and they don't have a PABX or some type of system to do voice injection onto incoming calls. For example, they wish to announce that they have reached XYZ company and the call may be recorded for training purposes. The AQ can do this by simply on answer, when the agent answers or the customer answers, it'll play a greeting, and that greeting will be heard by the person who's answered and the external caller, and of course is recorded, so it is a verified record that the call is being recorded. The recorder also is a multi-recording interface, so that basically means that if we've got 4 or 8 ports, we can have a CO line recorder or a number of CO lines recorded in each port. We may have an RT circuit they wish to record, and a lot of companies now are recording RTs, whether it be down to the truck level. We've got heavy machinery now with single line recorders and recording RTs from a forestry or logging type company environment, right through to your taxis or security aspect when they are recording the RT. So a single recorder can be set up to record RTs on one port, a couple of ports of CO lines, and maybe even they want to have a room or counter recording, so that any transactions for a meeting room, for example, they may record the conversation. I know that can sound a bit strange, but it is sometimes a requirement just for reviewing things, but also customer transactions on front counters, so that any disputes or confrontations at the front counter can be recorded and captured on the voice recorder. The search engine, as we've talked about, is very easy to use and it's quite powerful to find the recording that you wish. And we can actually even download the records that we've found to the local drive of the PC or a public drive, or actually even email these through with details of the core detail recording of what has been sent. The recording functionality on the AQ is pretty flexible. For example, we can have the recording all calls all the time. We might have a situation where a call for some reason does not wish to be recorded, e.g. the boss might want to decide that he doesn't want to record his conversation. So by simply dialing the code, so for example we can have the recorder recording all calls, then halfway through he might decide, well, I don't want this code to be done, and he knows a code that he can dial on his phone, and that'll actually tell the recorder, do not record this, and the recorder will actually drop that call and not record the conversation. Now this can be done at any time during the conversation, even right at the very end of it. Or we actually might have it the opposite way around. We've got a number of customers that they don't want their calls recorded unless they want to, and then they can dial a code to get the recorder to turn on its recording. Now this is quite handy because at any stage during that conversation they can dial this start record code, and Once they do that, the recorder is actually already recording the conversation. It just hasn't saved it yet. And once you've said start recording, it captures the entire recording conversation. So it might be just simply a customer that doesn't want to record all conversations, but wants a method so that if a situation arises, they can immediately dial some code and that call will be captured. So this is one of the Artech specialties in regards to, you can simply say, right, record this call, and because the Artech's sitting there monitoring all activity on the lines, it can simply say, right, save that call, and it'll save the call entirety. The Artech range is also what they call PCI compliant, which is personal credit card information compliance. This is a requirement by many banks now, even on an international basis. So fundamentally what that means is that I might be recording a call or selling you something, and now I need to take your credit card details. Now PCI means that I'm not allowed to actually record or hold your credit card details on record. So now all I do is simply say, well, okay, Mr. Customer, we're going to take your credit card details now. You're going to hear a couple of beeps. I dial a code, for example, in this case, *7. And what the recorder will do will say, you wish to mute this recording from this point. Now, the recorder keeps on recording it, but now whilst we're talking here and you're giving me all your credit card details, it is muted the conversation. So, and then at the end of it, I can say, right, we're going to turn it back on again. I'll dial #7. The recorder now activates the recording again, but it'll have even that muted part of the conversation recorded, so, and with all the introduction of the agent before and after, so they can capture the entire conversation. Highlights of the recorder: the sound quality is exceedingly good. It has active sound level control with automatic gain between the local side, and it's a good solid sounding recording. It has a good strong solid search engine which is easy for the customer to use. One of the nice things about the Artech product range is customers like using them. Why? Because they're simple to use, they're understandable to use, there's nothing complicated about them. They have all the functionality and complexity behind them, but when it boils down to it, when the customer just wants to search for a record, see what a line's doing, the Artech is very simple to use. The recording filter, we can start doing multi-conditional recording and automatically filter the calls we don't want recorded. We can do that per line, we can do that per extension, exception numbers. We may have a list of numbers that are incoming calls that are from certain numbers we decide we don't want to record. It might be that the boss is extension 215 and we've got the SMDR all set up on the recorder, and anything in extension 215 makes, because he's the boss, he doesn't want it recorded, we can make sure that the recorder doesn't record those details. We have an encrypted data format which cannot be broken, so if the recorder or hard drive information is breached and taken away, you cannot decrypt it. We had a case where on a certain customer site, I won't go into the details, but the New Zealand police actually uplifted the hard drive of the recorder. After 2 weeks of looking at it, they actually had to contact ourselves here in New Zealand to actually organise Artech themselves to set up a decryption code once they had the authorization to do so, so that they could actually see what was on the recorder. The recorder, because it's IP-based interface, can be remotely accessed, so that we can have a head office and with a branch office, and we can actually remote into the recorder and through the internet and access the recorder and get the files, etc. off. Also have a centralized backing up service system, which is called the Vault, which actually can also back up all branch records or branch recorders. So we might have 5, 1, 2, 10 recorders around the country, and we have the Vault software which actually will log in remotely at a set time and drag all the calls back to a centralized backup and for preserving the recordings. The software interface on the AQ, again, is quite simple to use. There is a separate presentation on how this all works, but fundamentally, again, it's simple to use. You can see all the details of the lines, and the status of the lines and the actual calls down here with extension numbers and information that has happened. The example configuration of the AQ series. We can have a Centrex solution where we have got simply all the CO lines coming directly into a customer's premises, and I've just got SLT lines on it, and the customer wishes to have recording. In the diagram here we can see that we've got the Centrex network, we have the recorder on the customer premises with the SLT phones on it. Now, because this is a Centrex solution, they do not have any pre-recording, we can have the Artech saying, having a pre-recorded greeting the customer can have all set up, and basically inform the customer that it may be recorded for training purposes. On a PABX solution, we can put the a PABX or IPPX type of solution. We can actually put the recorder on the CO lines in front of the phone system, and then have all the lines going through that to the PABX, and then taking the SMDR out of the PABX and putting it through to the recorder. Now, if we look at this diagram here, we've got our CO lines coming in here. Here's our recorder being put through to the PABX. Then we've got the SMDR linking back. Now that can be linked back via RS-232 or TCP. Get our phones in here and across the network with PCs. Now, because the SMDR is connected across, the recorder is linking up all the external calls with the number that dialed out or the call ID that came in, and linking that in with the extensions within the system, to the point the Artech does this so well that the call may come in, be answered by the operator. The Artech will record the operator's conversation as one part of the call. The operator may transfer that call through to extension 207. The recording record will then show 200, that's this part of the call, and then it will start recording extension 207's part of the call as a separate record. If 207 then transfers it on to 208, it will then put 207 into as a recorded record and start then recording the new record on 208. It's quite flexible and fully transparent on a PABX. We can then, with the AQ record digital or voice over IP handsets, this is using a voice trigger type scenario, and effectively what we're doing is we're monitoring the handset or the headsets. Isn't my favourite way of doing it, but is still quite a very effective way of doing it, and customers who just want a quick and simple recording solution that is cost effective, this is one of the best ways of doing it. So effectively we've got the little audio adapter sitting here on the headset or the handset, and that goes back to the ports on the recorder, and any conversations that are had on that telephone, when they answer the call on the headset or handset, it immediately starts the recorder into trigger mode, and it starts recording the conversation. You're not going to get the details of the caller line IDs, etc. You'll simply know that extension such and such, because it was on port 1 or 2, made this call at this time. Okay, it's effective. Horses for courses. I'm going to go back and we'll just touch a little bit on the Centrex FXS Gateway VoIP solution. Now, the reason I'm pulling this out is there's a lot of these small call centers, or even very large call centers now, don't require a full voice over IP system on their site. They're simply looking for voice over IP lines, and they're making massive outgoing calls or incoming calls, but mainly outgoing. So a lot of outbound call centers, they've simply got an FXS gateway. It could be a 24-port gateway, it could be an 8-port gateway, and they've got SLTs, phones with a headset on them. They make an outgoing call, they get the voice over IP traffic, or the savings costs. They don't have to have huge investment on their hardware side with the PABX. They simply got FXS with an SLT. So I'm just pointing this out to you guys out there, that be aware there's a lot of outbound call centers particularly that are simple, to the point, but again they're looking for the recording for their outgoing calls of what they're doing. We've got solutions out there in the market now, from anything from a 4-line recorder to a 64-channel recorder that does 20,000 outbound calls a day using this FXS solution. This is how they do it. So just be aware of that. So some of you guys might go, oh, analog recorder, no, that we don't need it, but this is a real time. This is what is happening out there in the market at this point in time. And then of course we could have the SLTs on the PABX. On top of that, of course, we can do RTs and etc. So we can record radio telephones recordings and that kind of thing. So don't rule that out. So where would we use recording? Police departments, fire departments, the military, government departments, security companies. We've got a number of security companies out there monitoring anything from CO lines through to voice over IP recording. Phone sales confirmation. Think about your own businesses in some respects. How many times do you need to verify your sale or verify what was said or disputes are arised? Any business nowadays should look at doing recording. Support centres, medical service confirmation, doctors, that type of thing. Classrooms and when recording lectures, etc. Stock exchange market, your TV shopping type environment. Banks and financial services, important point. Credit card call centres, this is an important point for PCI compliance. Your travel agents, your insurance agents, even a fast takeaway shop or retail shop now when taking orders over the telephone. Thank you for your time and with enabling us to go through this presentation. We hope it was helpful. If you have any queries or questions, please do not hesitate to contact us.